r/ask Reddit. What stranger will you never forget? When I was a broke-ass 18-year-old trying to make ends meet, I had a side hustle providing IT support for households, like a geek squad sort of thing. In practice, I would mostly set up computers for elderly people and the tech illiterate, and teach them how to use them, or get them out of technical binds, usually with printers, by googling on their behalf. This elderly Korean gentleman hired me to set up his new computer for him. I spent an hour setting it up and teaching him how to use it, and 2 more hours eating a wonderful lunch with the man and his wife. He wouldn't accept my invoice for just the first hour. Instead, he paid me 3x my hourly rate for all 3 hours, and asked me to come back to train him the next week. Over the course of about a month I came back 4 times, worked with him, had a lovely meal, and he would tell me about his family and his kids. He was so proud of his daughter, who was about to finish a residency and become a pediatrician. By the end of the month he was pretty comfortable on the PC, and I thanked him profusely for how kind he was and how ridiculously he'd overpaid me. He told me I reminded him of his son, who was estranged for some reason I didn't press, and that he hoped somewhere out there somebody was being kind to his son and sharing a home-cooked meal with him. I don't know why, but more than 10 years later I can't think of that guy without tearing up. I hope everything turned out well for him. The lady who told me I look great in blue, and that it was clearly my color. To this day if I'm deciding between shirts to buy or wear, I'll go with blue. That compliment was about 15 years ago at least. Reminds me of how I won't cut my hair beyond a certain length because I was once told by my friend's mum that I looked really fantastic and like a K-pop or something. My lost wallet was returned in the mail. The anonymous stranger sent it back at their own expense. $9.75 postage, with all the money, credit cards, driver's license, and other items intact. Nothing was missing. A note enclosed read, "Please do something kind for a stranger whenever you have the opportunity." My dad is a long-distance cyclist. He found someone's phone and wallet on the side of the road, and did the same. I was driving down south with my girlfriend. We have a blowout, so I put on the donut. The donut blows out while we're exiting the very next exit, so that we are maybe 19 and at least 100 miles from anyone we know at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. I'm thinking on what to do next, and probably looked like there was something wrong, so this older man offered to help. He drives me 20 or so minutes to a junkyard to get a cheap tire. Then he puts the tires on the rim with no more than a pry bar and some soapy water. Had a compressor on his truck, so he aired it up and I put it on, and we went on our way. Took a train to NYC by myself for the first time. I was 18. Second time to NYC. First time ever on a train. I told the kiosk lady that I'd never been on a train before and asked if she might give me a quick rundown of what to do. Another train station employee was nearby and was so interested and amused that I was taking a train for the first time and was alone. He walked me through what to do, down to the smallest detail. No judgment, no meanness. He was just a guy with a silly disposition, delighting in a young person's naivety, breaking up the doldrums of his week. I aspire to be that way when people ask me for help. Thanks, Frank P. You were a peach. The foreign exchange student and his parents who walked past my park bench on campus and dropped his passport. I chased after them to return it and his mom started screaming at me in broken English like, "Why you have his papers? Why you steal his papers?" While the kid and his father looked like they were going to die from embarrassment. This happened to me in the airport when I was 8. The man dropped his wallet and I gave it to him. His wife was just like, "Count the money in it, she looks like a thief." He didn't even have any money in it and she accused me of stealing it. Some people : When I was super overweight, I was just starting to work out somewhat regularly. Being morbidly obese at the gym is terrible. I have never felt more eyes on me before in my life. I was on a treadmill, grinding out some inclined walk like jogging, and a super fit girl got on the machine next to me. This was all pre-COVID. She did a short warm up, and before she got off the treadmill she turned to me and gave me a high five and told me to keep it up. It was so encouraging to have that support when I was used to getting stared at by everyone else in the gym. Her small, kind gesture went a long way. Honestly, if I ever see anyone unfit or overweight doing exercise, I just think good on them, and I imagine a lot of people do. Though I guess there are some a-holes out there. My son was a week old and had to go to the doctor. I had severe early onset postpartum depression, and I hadn't slept more than an hour at a time since his birth. I locked my keys, phone, and son in the car. This incredibly wonderful older couple calmed me down, called CAA, parked beside my car and sat with me until the tow truck came and unlocked the car. The tow driver refused payment. I will never forget those 3 people. This filled my heart. How old is your son now? And how are you doing? I was waiting for my appointment with an optometrist when an old Haitian man walked in with a grocery bags. Thai receptionist knew him, so he walked up to me and proceeded to ask me riddles. When I finally got the answer to one, he reached into his bag and gave me a Snickers, then left. To this day I'm really curious as to what would motivate a man to become a wholesome riddler. An Irish guy, not in Ireland, who spoke with such a strong accent that I couldn't make out a single word. To this day I question whether it was just a prank. In college, I was dating a girl. I really loved her, but I realized that we were incompatible and we had to break up. So I downed a handle of vodka by myself in my dorm. I was drunk as duck, but still feeling shitty, so I decided to head to the bars and drink some more. I actually don't remember if I made it there or not, but I remember getting off the bus from having come from the bars and was too wasted to continue the relatively short walk to my dorm. I decided to just lay down where I was at, which was quite literally the gutter next to the railing. Luckily it was an empty gutter, but a gutter nonetheless. This complete bro dude comes by and sees me laying in the gutter and helps me up. He helps me walk back to my dorm, and on the struggle there he asks me what's wrong. I explained the situation. I don't remember much of anything from the conversation, but I do remember him saying something to the effect of, "Bro, your problems aren't gonna be solved at the bottom of a bottle." I was in the laundry with my dog and an old man with his dog approached. Our pets met and the man said, when Jesus said love your neighbor as you love yourself. Only the dogs understood it. After that we had a small chat. Then he left and I have never seen him again. I will never forget that man. Was on a solo trip to Amsterdam last year, partying it up as one does. Was at a bar having a few drinks, and a gorgeous British woman a seat or two over from me, mid-20s, grabs my arm. I'm a very gay looking man, by the way, and starts going on about how good it is to see me. I got the hint and noticed an older guy bothering her and her friend. Played along with them as their long lost BFF until he left. We ended up spending the rest of the night bar crawling and getting trashed together, having the best time. I'll never forget UB. When I was in elementary school I fell through ice. A man who was walking his dog saw me fall and rushed to the shore. I frantically swam back to the shore. I was only about 5 meters into the pond, so it wasn't a long way, but it took some with soaked winter clothes. When I reached the shore, the man pulled me up by my jacket. It would have been difficult to get up, as there was a steep incline. I didn't thank him, because I was in shock, but I bet he knows I was grateful, and 20 years later I still hope I would have thanked him. I used to walk to school at around 7:30 AM every morning during high school. Each morning through 9th and 10th grade, I used to pass an old Asian man in a sweater and sweatpants. He used to jog every morning, and we would always briefly see each other at the exact same time. Eventually we were familiar with each other and we would exchange good mornings and a smile, and carry on. The last time I saw him was at a supermarket, and it had been quite a while since I had seen him during my walks to school. When we made eye contact, he got so happy and smiled and waved and introduced me to his wife. She was just as kind as he was. As I continued my walks in the morning until graduation, I always hoped to run into him again and see how he had been. I guess I grew attached to him or something. Unfortunately, I never saw him again after that, and from time to time he still crosses my mind. I hope he's okay. He used to be the highlight of my days when no one else could smile at me. I was doing tech support and my customer was so happy with my service she offered to marry me to her daughter. I politely declined. There are a few. The biggest one was when I was homeless and asked a lady for the time. She told me and asked if I wanted to share her sandwich and the paper. She was the first person to treat me like a person, like I was worth something in years. I never got her name, but I will remember her fondly for the rest of my life. I know that you'll never, ever know what a difference she made in my life. Just that one simple thing she did and the humanity she showed me changed my life. I got sober just a few days later and completely turned my life around. One person, one smile, one kindness that you may never think of again in your life can change someone else's life beyond measure. I was at a pool bar at a resort in Jamaica. A British lady next to me asked me the most random question, which turned into a nearly 3-hour conversation. The question, what is a redneck? It was a lot more difficult to explain than I thought it would be. I didn't realize that was an unknown concept to a lot of Brits. Reminds me of an old joke for some reason. What's the difference between a cowboy and a redneck? Acreage. A translator I met in Iraq. He had worked with the Red Cross through the Balkan Wars of the 90s and had been taken prisoner half a dozen times. The last time, he was beaten so badly that the nerve damage cost him the use of his right arm. It was 90% immobile. After 10 years without the use of his right arm, a surgeon offered to operate on him, with the understanding that if he failed, they would just amputate. So he went under the knife not knowing if he would wake up with a working arm or a stump. After 5 years of physical therapy, learning how to use his arm again, he signed up to work as a translator in the war in Iraq because he saw how many innocent Iraqis were being killed by American forces due to the communications barrier. When I met him, he had been there for 3 years, while his wife and 2 kids were in America. I always try to be a good person, but I know I'll never be as good as that. A fine young man on the bus I took to Orlando. So sexy, and we started talking as we waited for the last long leg to Orlando. We talked in line as we got on the bus, and sat next to each other the whole time, just talking and even flirting a bit. He was funny and thoughtful, but we knew we were just passing the time. Still, we talked so candidly during those last few hours that it made a real impression on me. We didn't exchange numbers or anything, but we both wished each other the best as he got off the stop before mine. I don't even remember his name and probably wouldn't know him if I saw him, but I remember the feeling of talking with him and, weirdly enough, even miss him. Hope he's alright. Same here. I, male, was taking a train from Toronto to Montreal during a spring break trip. A very attractive female accountant was sitting next to me and we struck up a conversation. We were flirting a bit and had a pretty good conversation going. My dumbass never got her name. I fell for her and thought about asking for a date, but thought it's impossible to have a relationship as we're living in different countries, US and Canada. Still thinks about her at times and wonder how she's doing. The gentleman in a business suit handing me his umbrella in the middle of a downpour. We just were passing each other on the sidewalk. Our eyes met and he just handed over the umbrella with a "here you go." Never saw him ago. I was in my freshman year of college and while alone in my dorm room a light fixture fell on my head giving me a concussion and a major gash. After being taken to the hospital and getting 10 staples in the scalp and simultaneously being diagnosed with a raging UTI, I was dumped in the parking lot with glass in my hair and blood covering my face and 15 miles away from the campus at 2 AM. This was before Uber and I didn't know who I could call to help me. A female cop drove by and offered to take me back to campus. Along the way she stopped at a CVS and paid for my prescriptions out of her own pocket. Once back at campus she made sure I got back to my room and let my RA know what had happened and to keep an eye on me. I truly don't know what I would have done without her. I was freshly 17. New to the area. It was very rural. I didn't have my wallet, and I was bleeding and concussed. I will forever be grateful for her help. My dad is a truck driver. At the time he was probably about 55-56. It was a long time ago, I can't remember, and we were waiting for a train to pass. So there was then this black guy that looked rather homeless and he knocked on the glass of our truck and he said something along the lines of, "Can I give you something for your grandson?" and pulls out this model freight train. My dad insisted on giving him $20 but the guy refused saying, "I am just trying to make people happy." I was on a tram and I didn't have a ticket and the ticket inspectors came on. I got asked to have my ticket seen and I said I couldn't find it on me and he said he'll come back so I can look for it. There was a stranger sat on the seat behind me who had a ticket. He gave it to me and he got off at the next stop. Guy gave me his ticket so I wouldn't be issued a fine. I am a ticket inspector and believe me, we know people are doing this. And if I turn around, I do it so you can get the stranger's ticket. We're also humans. I was by myself in a restaurant bathroom with my screaming newborn baby. As his cries intensified, I started to crumble knowing that we somehow had to walk all the way through the massive restaurant as the bathroom was tucked away in the back. A woman close to my age walked in. I apologized for the crying, and she immediately smiled and responded with "Don't even worry about it." On her way out, she walked up to me and my baby and asked if this was my first. I responded with a yes. She was not a mom herself, but immediately became empathetic to my situation. After a few minutes of conversation, I told her that I was nervous about walking my crying baby through the busy restaurant. She looked at me and said, "Let's get you out of here." She then opened the door and walked behind me, softly rooting me on all the way back to my table. She had no idea how much I needed her in that moment and I'm forever grateful. One day I was trying to park at the store and a lady was crossing in front of me in the lot. I was waiting patiently and she shot me a dirty look and yelled something like, "What's your problem, a-hole?" I proceeded to return the profanities with some FUs and other goodies. I went into the store steaming and proceeded to do my shopping. When I came out I had all but forgotten about the lady, but as I drove away, there she was. Something came over me and I pulled up to her and said something like, "I'm sorry for yelling and cursing at you. I don't even know you. Who knows? We could have a lot in common or even be friends." Her face transformed in front of me. It went from twisted up angry to soft and friendly. She apologized immediately and in the most genuine way, told me to have a good day. This is the day I really learned positivity and love is really powerful and the type of energy I want in my life. I know I sound like a little softy, but that was a big experience for me and I'm grateful for her. When I was at a bus stop once about 4 or 5 years ago, a nervous looking man asked me what time his bus came and informed me he was going for an interview. I told him the time, wished him luck, and then my bus came and I never saw him again. The reason he stuck out to me was because he reminded me of that part in Roald Dahl's The Twits, where he said that even if a person is ugly, if they think happy thoughts, the happiness shines out of their face and they will always look lovely. This man was extremely ruddy, had a large mustache and very large teeth, but he was so polite that his positivity shone out of him. The woman who pulled over in the pouring rain and talked me down off the railing of a bridge over a Florida highway when I was 18. She looked like she had just left a business meeting, but she stayed with me for probably an hour. No umbrella, no raincoat, car still running, listening to me, offering words of encouragement. She truly believed that God had a plan for my life and it wasn't supposed to end that night. She finally convinced me that suicide was a permanent solution to a temporary problem. I'm 51 now. I still haven't figured out what God's plan is for me, but I'm starting to believe she was right. I was walking back from a party in college with my roommate. We each had a girl with us and this drunk rhinoceros of a man was walking down the street in our direction. I shit you not. He was one of the largest and most built people I have ever seen. He was so drunk he was stumbling from the sidewalk into the street and shit. I obviously wanted to just get home and carry on, but as soon as we were within earshot he said something along the lines of, "Look at these ducking skinny dweebs walking home with girls. If this was back in the old times I would just duck you both up and take them with me. How you like that, ladies?" All 4 of us were terrified, but my drunk brain just told me to make him a buddy and bring him along. For our safety and his, I told him we were going to another party and he should totally come with us. We walked for like 15 minutes together and he totally flipped the switch, stopped being all aggro, told us his life story and how his GF sucks and cheated on him, how he was just going to get a burrito and was lonely. After a while of chit-chatting and walking with us all to a party that didn't exist, while I had no clue where we were headed or what the plan was, he just said he was tired and was going to go get that burrito, gave us his phone number and told him hit him up if we found the party. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.